Hi, and welcome to this video in which I'll be talking about one of my campaigns, which is campaign number 3. This is the Visit Your MP campaign, or more specifically, it's the mail merge, the international mail merge plus Visit Your MP campaign, because there's actually two parts. The first part I've done, which is the international mail merge, which I've been doing for the last 2 years. And you don't really have to concern yourself with the mail merge because I've been doing that. But the point is, all you need to concern yourself with in terms of this campaign, which I'm kindly asking all TIs in the UK to do, is the Visit Your MP part of the campaign. So to keep it really simple, this is the Visit Your MP campaign, although in reality it is working together with the mail merge campaign that I've been doing over the last 2 years. So I'm going to be following some of my notes here because basically this is exactly the same information that is on the Targeted UK website under the campaigns tab, and under the International Mail Merge plus Visit Your MP campaign, which is campaign number 3. You can click on the link and it will jump you to that section. But soon I'm going to be putting on individual campaigns as well as sub-tabs to make it easier to navigate. So just to give you a little bit of background about the campaigns, I now have 9 campaigns on the Targeted UK website under the campaign section, and I'm asking all TIs if they can read this with as a matter of urgency, to actually read all the 9 campaigns and start to familiarise with themselves with that. I'm going to be advertising these campaigns on social media more and more, but I'd really like individuals to take personal responsibility to actually do all of these campaigns. These campaigns took a lot of time to organise, to plan, and to put down onto the website, and they're going to be a lot of effort to keep running. So I really would love it if people could appreciate and take personal initiative and personal responsibility to actually do every single one of these campaigns. This may seem a lot initially, but actually if you get organised and you write it down in your to-do lists, which I recommend actually writing this down. That's really essential, to write it down on a to-do list, because then it's there, and it's almost like you feel more inspired, and you're remembered to actually do it. And then when you do each one, just tick it off. So basically, yeah, I'm really calling out for people to actually really do these campaigns. Actually take the personal initiative, take personal responsibility, and go out and do these campaigns, each and every one of these campaigns, and not stop until each one has been done. And that way we know that we're finally working together in the UK targeted community on the same page to stop the crimes in this country. There are a few campaigns that are international in scope, but most of them are based upon helping the targeted community in this country. So yeah, please get involved, please write them down on your to-do list, and please take action. I can't emphasize this enough. Nothing will happen without action. We're not going to get rescued from this. We need to be the ones to create the change. We need to personally create the change. So yeah, I'll go into this now, and also I just want to say I have a current goals tab which outlines the main goals which Targeted UK are focusing on at any one time. And this is just to make it a bit easier so we can do specific campaigns at the same time and really have an impact. For example, 10 Downing Street is getting lots of emails sent to them at the same time, or lots of MPs are getting requests at the same time, which means that they're going to be able to speak to each other more. And it's just going to be more effective if we have a current goals tab where we focus on specific campaigns which we're working on, and that way we can work on them together to have a greater impact. And I'm asking people to come back to that campaign, that current goals tab, every week just to check whether it's changed or not, so they can see what the current goals are for the UK, and that way we know we're working on the same page. So in summary for that, yes, please read all of the campaigns and put them down your to-do list and work on them over time. It won't take long over time if you get organised, and secondly, please focus on the current campaign, the current goals tab even more, so that we can work effectively as a unit in the UK on specific campaigns over the periods of time in which we're doing them. So yeah, really, really important, that current goals tab. That's the most important tab of the website. Please keep checking back to that website so we can really focus on specific campaigns together as we go through this process. So with that said, I would really like to emphasize how this campaign, the Visit Your MP campaign, campaign number 3, is so important. This, alongside the prayer campaign, is the most important campaign, because without our representatives knowing in depth and being fully educated, not just having heard it once from someone sending them an email, that's not enough. You know, anyone who does marketing will know that it takes 7 repetitions for someone to buy. And if we apply that principle here, which I think is a very relevant principle, we can see that we really need 7 quality times where we've interacted with an MP before they will listen to our message. And even though I've emailed all of these MPs currently 15 to 16 times, not all of these MPs will have received these emails every time, because MPs are very busy. So we need people to go and see them physically and personally, and that will really create an impact. But the point of what I'm saying is that we need consistent repetition exposure with quality emails and quality physical face-to-face contacts until we will get to that point where they'll really take it on board and start to help us. So just to introduce you a little bit about what I did with the mail merge, this was actually the biggest TI campaign in the history of the movement in terms of size and scope. In terms of by the end of it, we had 20,000. I did actually all the email myself, except a few people who helped me a few times. But I managed to get 20,000 contacts, most of which I actually did myself from actually physically researching them. Some of the contacts I got from lists, which I'm hugely grateful for the people I got them. But all I want to say is this campaign took me a huge amount of time and research, and it was great because it got the word out there to all of the people who can actually help, the people in power who can actually help in the human rights groups, the MPs, the MEPs, i.e. European members of Parliament, members of European Parliament, the US Senate Intelligence Committee, intelligence agencies, all the major human rights groups around the world, the Council of Europe, and so on and so forth. There was a huge list of people that I sent it to, and one of the people that I sent it to was the UK MPs. And this is why it's so important for people to see their MP in person, because that really backs up the email. This will make it real and physical for them to actually have someone in person say they're a TI and go through their experiences and what they've experienced, and educate them about this issue in the UK and how this is going on globally, etc., etc. So to summarise, visiting your MP will make this real and physical to them, which is why it's absolutely essential that you go and visit your MP. I cannot stress this enough. Please do not just listen to this message and go away and just ignore it. Please write it down and take it seriously. We need everyone to get on board with this, because, you know, I reckon only 50%, if that, maybe even only 30% of the MPs have actually been seen face to face about that. If that, I reckon it's probably only 15-20%, and even that is, you know, okay, a lot of MPs will know about this, you know, from my email campaign or just from hearing about it generally, but we really need to make it real and physical to them en masse, so every single UK TI visits their MP. I mean, can you imagine if every single TI in the country did that? We would have at least a couple of people from every single borough in the whole UK having visited their MP around the same time. Now that would get MPs talking. That is powerful. We must do this. We really have to do this. That's all I can say. It's one of the basics, but it's so important to actually do it and do it well. So basically, this campaign will achieve the following things. These are some of the reasons why we all have to visit our MP. So the first one it'll do, it'll back up the international mail merge campaign and the emails they've received. It'll make it real and physical for them. The second thing it'll do is it will help them and prompt them to research this and hopefully get this investigated with enough time and enough MPs who are aware of this. That's really, really important. We need to encourage them. We need to really emphasize, in fact, be very strong and say, please research this, please investigate this. This is really important. Another thing to do, it'll get them asking questions internally, and it'll inspire their intrigue, their own personal intrigue, as to what is really going on. And that's really important, that we get them asking questions. It will also get them speaking to other MPs as well, which is obviously key. The more the MPs are speaking, the better. And if we can do this campaign all around the same time, you know, when I really launch this campaign and say, right now, please everyone, you know, write to your own MP, see them in person. If everyone is seeing their MPs are in and around the same time, then that's really going to create a lot of conversation between the MPs when they meet in Parliament, saying, hey, I met this guy or met this girl, this woman who was telling me about direct energy weapon assaults, about mind control, about Havana syndrome. And that will get MPs talking, especially if we all do it en masse together. We see our MPs at the same time. It's much more likely to create that effect where the MPs are talking with other MPs, which is more likely to create change. And again, like I wouldn't even necessarily mention mind control at this point. I would call it Havana syndrome and stick to that terminology and go off the leverage that we've already got in terms of US diplomats being affected by this. That's going to make it sound much more realistic and much more believable to the MPs. So the other thing is we want publicly available laws passed in Parliament via these MPs, by these MPs. So that's another reason that we're doing it. That's the end goal, so to speak, or that's the main end goal. Later I'll talk about 4 main goals, but this is the main end goal. So it has to be a face-to-face interview. It's no good speaking to them on the phone or doing it via email or sending them a bit of information. It has to be a face-to-face interview. And there are certain ways which I recommend going about that, which is going to make it much more likely, in my opinion, to actually get an interview with them, get a face-to-face appointment with them. So to get the best success, I recommend the following points. Firstly, not to give too much info away. Keep it very, very simple, because if you give too much info away, it may scare them off, or it may be just too much for them to believe. So you want to keep it very short and very sweet, and maybe even relate it to something they know or an issue that they know, so that they feel it's something familiar and they're not scared away. The second point, which is just what I basically mentioned, is don't put too much don't put information in there that's going to scare them away. If you start talking about mind control, I would stay away from mind control from now on and just talk about Havana syndrome. If you start saying things like, and anyone can be affected by this, and they use this on famous people and politicians, and they, you know, and the military and the global intelligence agencies are doing this, and there are street gang, you know, there are organised criminal gangs. If you say that sort of stuff, a lot of MPs, unfortunately, will just get scared off and think, I don't have to deal with that. I'm not going to be the person kicking a fuss about this. I'm just going to leave that be. So we must not, in our initial email, trying to get a face-to-face appointment, say things that are going to scare them off too much, you know. Also, do not go too much beyond their level of understanding. Don't come out with so much information that it's going to blow their minds and it's going to be like too much for their current level of understanding. You know, you may be able to mention something that is related to what generally people in society would know, you know, but don't give them so much information that it's too much for their current level of understanding to grasp, and so they just go, that's just too much to understand right now, it's too much to deal with, I'm not going to bother seeing this person, or they're not talking the truth because it's so far away from my level of understanding that this can't be true, this person's wasting my time. Do not go beyond, this is my recommendation, not to go beyond what would be the general average person's level of understanding and an MP would classify as that. Just view them as a general average person who, and don't go beyond that level of understanding that's going to scare them away. Do not mention this government, military, intelligence agencies or criminal groups. Do not mention who's doing it at all. That's my recommendation when you email them. My recommendation would be to say that you would like to discuss some issues or legislation revolving harassment or AI, or artificial intelligence, and then just leave it at that, and then get your face-to-face interview. And then when you get your actual face-to-face interview, then my recommendation would be to go into more depth and start providing evidence as to why it's true. Go with your laptop, show them the evidence on the laptop or any print-offs that you have. And again, this is really, really important to emphasize, is that we all have our own theories about how this is being done, but we need to again pitch it in a way that is not too far away from their level of understanding, and grow their level of understanding slowly, so it's not like a shock. It's not like just a straight shock. We're coming out with all these truths that are just too shocking too soon. We need to slowly work it up and develop it in a logical, progressional way. Maybe even tell about the history of MKUltra and mind control first, or maybe probably not even talk about that. Probably just focus on Havana syndrome and the diplomats, and or start off with something to do with AI. But the point is, we need to progress it in a way, in a very logical and evidence-based way, so it comes across as credible and not too much too soon. And that way they're getting, yes, I can understand that. Next point, yes, yeah, I could believe that. Next point, yes, I could understand that. I could believe that's relating to what I know and my experience of life. So we have to be very clever with the way we pitch it. So no wild theories. No wild theories or personal theories that are not backed up with evidence. All has to be evidence-based. That's my really, really strong emphasis, and what I'm recommending, that we all need to have evidence-based things ready to show them. And it's also okay to say that you don't know everything, and that's why we need an investigation. I think that sometimes if you come across like you know everything and too much, it can be like, whoa, is this person for real? Like, how do they know all this? Is this real? It just seems too much. Sometimes it's good just to say as well, like, I don't know everything, I know a lot, but it's impossible for me to know the full scale of this information, because it's not like people are going out there and doing scientific experiments on this kind of thing yet. Although Relman did the experiment in the US, but that's another story. Generally, they're not doing science on this yet, so how can we say we're only getting information from credible sources and then piecing together these sources? So how can we know everything? I think it's important to state that. This is why, even though we've got all this credible evidence, this is why we need help with investigation. I don't know everything. This is why we need your help. Also, so some of the things which you can show in the meetings would be, for example, showing whistleblowers and quoting whistleblowers and what they've been saying, showing patents, showing leaked technology and classified technology, scientific documents, witness testimonies. These are all great to help your cause. But, really, actually, sticking to the Havana syndrome and the credible evidence of that is going to be even better than talking about all these whistleblowers, patents, leaked and classified documents, and witness testimonies from mind control victims, from targeted individuals. Because at least with the Havana syndrome, it's going off something that's been reported in the news, and so they're going to have more of an understanding of it and more of a belief of it. Unfortunately, a lot of these MPs may not believe things that are not already being presented in the mainstream media, hence why it's probably better to go with just Havana syndrome and talk about that and the evidence you can amass for that. Maybe witness testimonies is okay doing that alongside Havana syndrome, but some of the other stuff, the whistleblowers, the patents, leaked and classified documents, while that's good generally, a lot of that is just related to mind control and TIs and direct energy weapon hits. Maybe that even might be a bit too much. Maybe it's just best to stick with the Havana syndrome. But if you are, if for whatever reason you get talking about more, to do with TIs and their perspective of it, then these are great things to do because they're evidence-based. So ultimately you will have to decide, but my recommendation would be to stick with the Havana syndrome and provide credible evidence that that's going on, maybe even witness testimonies, but maybe leave some of that other stuff until you've got the whistleblowers, the patents, the leaks, and the unclassified documents, any scientific documents. Maybe leave that stuff until they're on board with the Havana syndrome, or until they've got an understanding and they're on your side. So next thing is that treat it like a business meeting. You have to go in professional, well dressed, with credibility, punctuality, speaking in a very confident, emphatic way, but not in an overwhelming way at the same time. Gain rapport with them, get them on your side, show them you're a good person, you're just one of the public, that you're concerned, be compassionate, empathetic, empathic rather, and go in there with your outcomes clearly defined. And I'm recommending that you go in there with the targeted individual goals that are in the resources tab in the Targeted UK website. I have a resources tab, and within that resources tab there are the outcomes, there are the targeted individual goals, and it would be good to go over the main 4 targeted individual goals that are written on the bottom of that document. The document is simply called Targeted Individual Goals, and at the bottom is the 4 major points from the document that we are trying to achieve in the UK. So I recommend going with that and outlining some of them points, or just maybe the 4 main points from the bottom. And also I recommend going in with the step-by-step MP's guide and potentially showing them that as well. Also show them all of the other evidence that you've got, about Havana syndrome, and then really persuade them. To persuade anyone, we really have to move them emotionally. So that's really important. We have to have credibility and provide things factually and satisfy the logical part of their brains, but we also have to move them emotionally. And if we can get both of them sides in our argument, both the logical and the credibility, but also move them emotionally, we're going to make huge progress. So after you've seen them, in the meeting, ask them what they're going to do, ask them where they're going to go with this, and demand that they take action on this. Not obviously in a demanding way, but just in a very firm way. Really insist that they take action, and just ask them to do specific things. If we don't have an outcome when we go into our meeting, then it's simply not going to go as well, because we've not created that in advance. We're not clear about what we want, and so the person we're speaking to is not going to be clear about what we want. We need to express what our outcomes are, to the MP, and make it clear what we'd like them to do, and be very firm in the way we say it, without being demanding and and being too much. Being very firm in the way that we're doing this, very confident in the way that we're doing this. So after you've been in the meeting, then always follow up with the information that you've given them in the session. So the things that you've shown them, and any other information that may be relevant, email them that information so they have a record of it, and then they can look into it, research it. Maybe they've got other links within there which they can research, which might maybe bring them onto other avenues of research. Give them the information in the email. Also give them the targeted individual goals from the resources tab, and the step-by-step MP's guide, which just basically gives a step-by-step approach of how MPs can actually bring this to the point where they're passing laws. It just gives them a breakdown of actions they can take to get them to the point where it's going to help us. Email all of these things, and then follow up. Also put your expectation in the email if it feels right. If it doesn't feel too pushy, just re-clarify what your intended outcomes were, what they said they would do in the outcome, you know, so like you following up and saying, thank you for saying that you would go and speak to 10 Downing Street or to other MPs or research about this. Thank you for saying that you would do whatever. And you're kind of following that up and kind of emphasizing that that's what they said, and therefore that's what you expect them to do without being over pushy. Follow up, you know, maybe 1 to 2 weeks later, and keep following up until they've done what they said they would do without being pushy. Obviously you're going to have to play this one by ear and use your own intuition as to how and when to follow up. But the point I'm trying to make is that they're busy and they need them reminders. They need that pressure without being overwhelmed, without being pushing. They need that pressure to, I won't say force them to do their job, firmly assist them to do their job. So you may follow them up after, you know, 1 to 2 weeks, and you may keep following up maybe every 3 to 4 weeks, or maybe every 1 to 2 weeks. Play it by ear. You know, maybe the first time you may follow up every, you know, after 1 to 2 weeks, then maybe after that, maybe every 3 to 4 weeks. But keep following them up until they have taken the action. And even after they've taken the action, you know, keep following up, keep that relationship going if you can. If they start ignoring you, then my recommendation is just to keep giving them information and keep supplying them with the latest information and news from the community. For example, when a new whistleblower comes out, or when a new breakthrough with Havana syndrome comes out. It's really important that we keep them in the loop continuously. We take personal responsibility for RMP to know all of this news and all of these things that are going on in the community. Ask as well if they could just give you a quick response just to say that they've got your information, and that way you know they're receiving it and reading it. Also, sometimes it's worth putting, if there is any secretary who is looking after this information, please pass it on and let me know that this information has gone to my MP, said MP, and that they are reading it in full. You know, please ask them to respond to let you know that it's been passed on and that they've read it as well. Ask them to read it and then let you know whether they've read it, you know. So it's very important to remember that the main 4 outcomes in the Targeted Individuals Goal document that I've got in the Campaigns tab, the main 4 outcomes are public government recognition, where they're admitting this to the public, and you know, this has started the process in which they will help. Also, frequency police, helping us to track and locate the perpetrators. Also, a safer and updated watch listing procedures, where they stop using this technology completely. You know, ideally what we're going for is a complete ban on these weapons, but at least in the interim we're saying no one is now legally and publicly allowed to go on these watch lists, and anyone who is put on a watch list has to be a real terrorist and has to and the agencies have to check every 6 months at least that this person is on a watch list. So one of the things is safer and updated watch list procedures, and the last one and the most important one is new publicly available laws by the UK government to stop this and provide all manner of legislation to stop and enforce these weapons being used on civilians. Like I said, the main thing that we're actually campaigning for is a complete abolition of these weapons. But, you know, in the meantime, at least as a step towards that, we need to stop these weapons being used on any civilian, because they are a complete violation of the human mind and the worst thing that could happen to an individual. So we want a complete abolition of this technology being used on anyone, and I firmly stand by that statement. You know, anyone who's been on these weapons programs would agree with me. You know, do not use these weapons on anyone. Ultimately, we're going for that complete ban and complete abolition, but at least in the meantime, we stop these being used. We hope we create safer watch listing procedures. We have frequency police that are able to go to people who complain of being harassed and track the frequencies. We have recognition by the government. These are the main 4 goals that we need in the meantime. Also, please ask the MP to speak to Boris Johnson personally, or the UK Prime Minister, and tell them about what's going on. But there are people all across the country complaining of being hit by this. So they need to tell the MP. They need to write or email or visit 10 Downing Street personally and tell 10 Downing Street in person, and ask them to also speak to other MPs and discuss this with other MPs to increase the debate, and also ask them to do this and with hindsight into creating new laws and new legislation that helps target individuals or victims of Havana syndrome. Again, the terminology of Havana syndrome is better in this case. So the reminder that the ultimate goal is legislation, and push for them to discuss this in Parliament and push for these new laws. So you may even say, ask them to form coalitions with other MPs, debate this with other MPs, and form strong coalitions with other MPs who can push this through Parliament and get these laws enforced. So please just be aware that this also supports my other campaigns. So the Right to Your MP campaign also supports the number 4 campaign, which is flood 10 Downing Street with emails and letters. Because ultimately, all of our campaigns are aimed towards 10 Downing Street, and aimed towards 10 Downing Street creating change by creating new legislation to stop this from going on, and legislation which they actually enforce, not which just they publicly acknowledge and change the legislation which they actually enforce. This is really, really important. So it's really important that all of our campaigns are geared towards creating change in 10 Downing Street. So a lot of our campaigns, a lot of the focus of our campaign within 10 Downing Street is going to be for the UK Prime Minister, whoever that UK Prime Minister is. But generally, please just remember this, is that the campaigns are all geared toward, the campaigns that I'm doing for Targeted UK, that we're doing, is all geared towards creating change in 10 Downing Street. That's what all of these campaigns are geared for, and they all dovetail to have that effect. So for example, the Writing to Your MPs campaign, again, we're asking the MPs to put pressure on 10 Downing Street and to talk to Boris Johnson, email 10 Downing Street, speak to other MPs. This all has that cumulative effect of putting pressure on 10 Downing Street. You know, the Right to 10 Downing Street campaign, which is number 4, which will be the next one I'll discuss in the next video. Again, that's another campaign directly putting pressure on 10 Downing Street. Campaign number 5, again, protests outside 10 Downing Street, putting pressure on 10 Downing Street. You see how they're all working together to create change at 10 Downing Street, to pass new legislation. So, all three of these protests, all 3 of these campaigns that I've just mentioned, is simply to put pressure on Boris, or whatever the current Prime Minister is, and the UK government at 10 Downing Street to create legislation. Please remember, without the MPs being informed of this en masse and having a real and physical example by someone coming to visit them, it's very unlikely that we're going to create change just by flooding 10 Downing Street with emails. We need all of the MPs to put pressure on 10 Downing Street and discuss this in Parliament. That's the critical part of this, and that's why this is one of my top 2 most important campaigns. Because without the MPs on our side and being well educated, in my view, they're not just going to do it from emails pressuring them and letters pressuring them to 10 Downing Street. I think that will help put pressure on if there is good intel and good conversation coming from the MPs saying this is going on. But I don't think it will be enough on its own. But it is a part of the plan, so it's still relevant that people email into 10 Downing Street. In fact, it's very important indeed. I just think that this is even more important. So to summarise, this is one of my 2 most important campaigns. This and the prayer campaign are my most important campaigns. And so I really can't emphasise enough how important it is for every UKTI to give them a real and physical example and really get across emotionally and with evidence why this is so important for Havana syndrome to be completely abolished in the UK. And please remember, the four most important goals are recognition, public recognition by the UK government, also frequency police being set up to track and protect and enforce this, also legislation, which is the most important part, that protects and enforces people who are victims of Havana syndrome. And the last one is the updated and safer watch lists and procedures, which make it illegal for anybody to be put on this, no matter what, any citizen, any civilian to be put on this. It needs to be completely abolished in use. But ideally, obviously, we're aiming for complete abolition of these weapons to the point where they're not even produced anymore. That would be the ideal. But we need to be realistic and say the first goal is just to stop this being used on civilians or anyone. You know, that would probably be our first goal, realistically. So thank you very much for watching, and I know that I'm very direct in the way that I say things, but I have to be. You know, I'm not messing around here, and we need to get this done and work together on the same page and just get this done. And I know it's uncomfortable taking action and doing these things, and you know, we'd rather just stay at home and kind of, you know, and feel relief from this, but unfortunately we're going to have to go through that uncomfortableness and that fear to overcome this, and we're going to have to work on the same page. This is the first time someone, not just in the UK but around the world, has come up with a fully developed, comprehensive plan that is being marketed in such a way as well. And so I'm asking you to please appreciate the hard work in which I'm doing to put this together as a professional life coach, to put this out there and to market it consistently for this plan to be done. Please, 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 I'm asking you to play your part in this and to help Targeted UK, help me, and help the community, help yourself by engaging these campaigns and being organised about these campaigns, and writing them down on your to-do lists, you know, and committing to them, fully deciding that you're going to engage and committing to them. Without that commitment, without people fully deciding, you know, we don't have a hope in hell's chance, honestly. So the only way we can do this is if we organise our campaigns together. Thank you very much for listening, and I really, really appreciate your support, your help and your positivity, and thank you very much. I really appreciate all of your help. Thank you and much love.